I'm because of how bad you played last year. Last year, your defense was. And I know Devin Singletary's coming back this year, but I'm not sure what your offense is going to be either. So there's a couple of different reasons that I think that. So, and then we are going to. These are just some updated. If you're watching on Facebook or when I put the video up on YouTube, I've got the recruiting rankings going on the bottom of the screen. Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Oregon are the top 5. Oregon that high doesn't surprise me because I know how Oregon can recruit. Just some other teams to touch on. Maryland has a top 25 recruiting class. California has a top 25 recruiting class. Sam Pittman at Arkansas is recruiting his ass off. He has a the 21st ranked recruiting class right now, and they have the hardest schedule this year. So it's not like he's recruiting and they're winning. He's recruiting, and he's only in his second year. So shout out to him. And that's what I feel like the only notables outside of the top 5, because a bunch of them are just your regular LSU, A&M, USC, Notre Dame. Like it's your usual suspects in there. I also have some coaches on the hot seat, which I feel like Scott Frost's seat only got hotter because of the recent NCAA investigation over at Nebraska. I feel like he was already on the hot seat because you brought him over to save your program, and he really hasn't been very competitive in many games. So with this, I just feel like it just doesn't, it doesn't benefit him at all. Next is Dino Babers. He was brought over from Bowling Green, and he had one good year at Syracuse, and that's all. Some games they've just looked completely lost. I think they won 2 games last year. So I'm just not sure, the competitive level there at Syracuse. Number 3 is Clay Helton. I touched on this when I mentioned them in the top 25. Your goal is to win championships, and it's nice that you're winning, 3, 4. It's nice that you're winning, 9, 10 games. But if you're not winning conference championships, which is what USC is used to, how long are they going to keep you around? I mean, he has the record, 45-23. So it's not like he's doing it because they're firing because he's not winning. He's just not winning to the level that they want him to. And then Jim Harbaugh is another one that I feel like is on the hot seat there. Again, you're not winning to the level of you've been there 5 years. I think this is going into his 6th year. You are 1 whatever against Ohio State, Michigan State. Michigan State's supposed to be your little brother, and you're supposed to beat up on them every year. And you had 1 year where you look competitive against Ohio State, and that was it. So, and they decided we're not committing to you multiple years anymore. We're doing it year by year. So I could see him on his way out the door. And the last one is Scott Satterfield. While he's only been at Louisville 2 years, this last year that team just looked so lost that I don't know if he's maybe lost his team. I try not to judge off a COVID year, but when your team just looks that bad, then it's hard not to see that. And Matt, yeah, I think Frost for sure is probably on his way out. Harbaugh wouldn't surprise me. And Kenny asked me, what about Lane Kiffin? Well, Lane Kiffin is only in his 2nd year. And it's the defense because they put half 100 on Alabama, and they probably should, and they still lost by 14. So I agree. I think he still gets a couple of years because at Ole Miss, it's not always easy to just come in year 1 and win. So, and he had that team competitive. I'm interested to see on some projections. I've talked to some people that have Matt Corral going in the top 5, which is interesting to me. I may just be sleeping on him, but we'll see how Ole Miss does this year. I got some Heisman favorites. Spencer Rattler, for just obvious reasons, that Oklahoma offense just produces Heisman-winning quarterbacks. JT Daniels, he's going to be about 18 months recovered from his ACL surgery. And as I said, they have weapons. He's got the arm. His arm talent, I think, is the best I've seen at Georgia since Matthew Stafford was there. That's how long I think it's been since they have had a quarterback of that kind of talent at Georgia. Next is Sam Howell. I kind of touched on him earlier. I just want to see consistency out of him. That offense produces points, produces stats. So I just need to see some consistency out of him. Next is Brock Purdy. I know last year was Breece Hall, but this year I think it's going to be Brock Purdy. I like him as a quarterback. They have, 3 really good games. And I'll touch on that, when I talk about some games. And then, DJ Uiagalelei out of Clemson. Like I said, he had one start last year, but Dabo between Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence has shown, that quarterback's going to sling the rock and put up some stats. So they're going to be, and if I had to pick right now, my Heisman's probably going to be Sam Howell. I like him a lot. He's a great college quarterback. He may not be a great NFL quarterback, but that's where I need to see some consistency. I need to see some growth. So Kenny's right here. It's more the Big 12 defense is not up to par as some of these other conferences. That's always been the narrative about the Big 12. That's always been the narrative. It's the defense. You have bottom 50 defenses and top 5 offenses. It's, and that just might be, how it is until we figure out what the Big 12 is going to do. So, like I said, he's not wrong, but, and I got some top 10 games here from College Football Nation. Number 10 is Iowa State, Oklahoma, which will probably be the first of 2 times they play each other. Number 9 is North Carolina at Notre Dame, which to me, by the time October 30th rolls around, Notre Dame, to me, won't be very relevant. So to me, it doesn't really matter. Number 8 is Oregon at Washington. This is significant for 2 reasons. Both teams start out in the AP top 25, and Oregon has that early season test against Ohio State. And depending on your view of Michigan, Washington plays Michigan. But also, this is probably going to be for the Pac-12 North. Washington was another team that got killed with COVID last year. So, this could be a very interesting game. Number 7 is Florida at LSU. I don't see it because, to me, since you lost Miles Brennan, we're not sure what your offense is going to be. We're not even sure if he was supposed to be the one to win the quarterback battle. So this one might make sense in, at the beginning of October when we figure out what LSU actually is. Number 6 is Cincinnati, Notre Dame. This is important for Cincinnati because this is going to be – they're a ranked team to start the season. They're ranked 8th. Notre Dame's also ranked. They also play Indiana, who's ranked. So if they can run the table, this is the year a group of 5 team would get into the playoffs. I'm calling it now. If Cincinnati goes undefeated, then they get into the playoffs. Don't at me. I'll actually go ahead because, my Twitter's a little lacking. So, what number were we at? 5. Number 5 is Florida, Georgia, just like every year. Game is in Jacksonville. It's always for the SEC East. Until Tennessee or South Carolina can become relevant again, that game is always going to be competitive for the SEC East. Number 4 is A&M LSU, and I think this is more because see how A&M finishes the season. I think they've won once or twice since they've moved over to the SEC. So we're just going to continue to watch Jimbo Fisher, build that A&M program up. Number 3 is Oregon at Ohio State. Again, we talked about this. It's an early season test for Oregon in the Pac-12, and it's an early test for C.J. Stroud. I'm still not sold on Ryan Day yet because I feel like he's still winning with some of mostly Urban Meyer's players. So we'll have to see what it looks like towards the end of the year and next year when he starts getting his own players in there and seeing what it looks like. So next we have Bama A&M on the 9th. So that's a big game because that's in A&M. And what if A&M knocks off Alabama? What if Bryce Young struggles early in the season? What if he struggles early and A&M is able to slip by Alabama? Because I want to say that's 1 or 2 weeks after they go to the Swamp to play Florida. So what happens if Alabama loses to Florida? So to A&M. So, and that's a road game. So we'll see. Nick Saban makes it look easy, but winning on the road is not as easy as he makes it look. And everybody's obvious choice for the top game is Georgia Clemson to open the season. And I waited to touch on this. Justin Ross got cleared to play for Clemson this year, recovered from an injury, and that's nice, and that's cool and all. But what kind of production are you getting out of DJ? And you're also replacing Travis Etienne. So I'm interested to see what that offense looks like early against another stout Georgia defense. And to answer Matt's point, who's an unranked team you see? Kenny actually answered it for me. This is exactly what I was thinking. To me, it's UCF because Gus Malzahn has proven he can win, and the cupboard is not empty down there. The cupboard is not empty at UCF. They actually have one of my favorite games. Two of my favorite games I'm going to watch this year: UCF and Cincinnati, and UCF and Boise State. So the one game that's not on here that I'm not sure why not everybody is talking about, Iowa goes to Iowa State in week 2, I believe. I believe that's when they go into Iowa State, and that can be a big game because if Iowa State loses that game, then that derails your whole season. So I don't understand why that's not being talked about as much as people think they should. And Kenny brings up another good point. Like I said, talk about winning in the SEC is not easy. Bama plays Florida, Miami, Florida, A&M, and Auburn on the road. We all know when Alabama goes to Jordan Hare, it's hard to win. They don't always win. So, and I'm interested in what Brian Harsin does. There's a couple of first-year coaches I'm watching. Brian Harsin is one of them. Brian Harsin at Auburn is going to be interesting. Does Bo Nix figure it out? Do they have to move away from Bo Nix? My Auburn guy that I used to work with freaking hates Bo Nix. So I'm just interested to see kind of what this looks like. So now we're going to move on to kind of some conference previews. We'll touch on a couple of them. I'll leave a couple of them for next week. And at the end, I'm going to show you ESPN came out with their Position U of what college is what, and we'll kind of go through and talk about them. I have, the names of them and things like that. So we'll just kind of talk about that at the end. So in the Atlantic, and this is all according to College Ball Nation, I really wanted to wait until the official media polls and everything came out, but nothing has come out yet. So here we are. In the Atlantic, it's Clemson, North Carolina State, Boston College, Louisville, Wake, Florida State, Syracuse. Obviously, it's Clemson's to lose. But to me, the sleeper team here is going to be Florida State. Because if McKenzie Milton is the McKenzie Milton we've seen at Central Florida, Florida State needs a quarterback. They can be competitive. I could see Florida State going 6-6 or 7-5 this year. They're not going to beat Florida. You're not going to beat Clemson. But Syracuse is beatable. Wake Forest is beatable. All these teams are beatable. In the Coastal, you've got North Carolina, Miami, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Duke. It's going to come down to the North Carolina-Miami game, I believe, in the middle of October. So that's what's going to decide who's going to win that division. Because I don't think either of those teams play Clemson this year. They both lucked out on that. But again, to me, the sleeper team here, I'm interested to see what Jeff Collins can do at Georgia Tech. He's coming up, I believe, on his 3rd year at Georgia Tech. So let's Let's see what he can do. I'm not a big Georgia Tech guy, but if they're relevant, it's fun. It's going to be fun around here. And here's probably the first shocker. They kind of threw me off doing this, but they have UCF beating Cincinnati, but they're trying to tell me Cincinnati's going to win the conference. That's not how tiebreakers work. But it's UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, Memphis, SMU, ECU, Temple, Tulane, Tulsa, Navy, and South Florida. This is going to come down to who wins in the middle of October in Cincinnati when UCF comes into town. I'm not sold on Houston. Memphis is Memphis. They're going to win 8 or 9 games. You're not beating Cincinnati. You're not beating Central Florida. SMU's replacing too much. That's kind of where we're at there. And the Big Ten gets interesting. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Indiana, Michigan State, Rutgers, Maryland. Will y'all put some respect on Indiana's name? Please. Please put some respect on Indiana's name. That's all. That's all I got. That's all I got. In the Big Ten West, Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern, Minnesota, Purdue, Nebraska, Illinois. Minnesota, I'm not sure where to go here. Wisconsin, COVID year, didn't really get to see much of them. Iowa, Iowa does what Iowa does. They run the ball. They win games. Northwestern has these kind of years about once every 3 or 4 years where they go to the conference championship game. Minnesota, PJ Fleck has done great things here since he got there. He made them relevant when nobody wanted to go there. So that's going to be an interesting race in the Big Ten West. But if you're asking me to pick right now, I'm going to plead the fifth, and I'll come back to that one. In the Big 12, they got Oklahoma, Iowa State, Texas, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, K-State, West Virginia, Baylor, and Kansas. Like I talked about earlier, this is going to come down to I believe it's in November. The November matchup, and they're going to have a November matchup and a December matchup. I'm not sold on Steve Sarkisian yet at Texas, not because he hasn't been there yet. We don't know what he's going to be. Conference USA, we have Marshall, Western Kentucky, Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Middle Tennessee, Charlotte, Old Dominion. To me, you got Mason. No, that's not his name. He's in North Texas. I had the quarterback name for Marshall, who I think was a freshman last year, and I can't think what his name is now. But that is going to be that is Marshall's division to win. I said they've got a returning quarterback, who I believe is a freshman. And Kenny says FAU could be a pick here. I am just not sold on FAU since they left. Since Lane Kiffin left, they just don't look the same. So I like the enthusiasm there, though, Kenny. Appreciate that. In the West, it's UAB, UTSA, Louisiana Tech, North Texas, Southern Miss, Rice, and UTEP. I'm going to go on a story time here because I've got about two more things to touch on before I get out of here. So UAB is, I think, going for their 3rd or 4th straight Conference USA West title. Can we all just remember that 5 years ago, UAB basically killed their football program? They pretty much killed their football program. So they killed it. They brought it back, and they are now a powerhouse in Conference USA. So until anybody can beat UAB, I'm not picking anybody else. And while this doesn't really matter as much because they're a bunch of independents that don't have a conference schedule, but this is how they figure out record-wise. Notre Dame, Liberty, BYU, Army, New Mexico State, UConn, and UMass. 2 things here. I will bet anybody $10 that Liberty has a better record than Notre Dame to end the season. And number 2, I also can't be the only one that didn't know that UConn was back in the FBS this year. I thought they were down at the FCS level for good. So whoopsie on your boy, because I didn't know that, they were back on the FBS level. So, and then we are officially 10 days from the start of college football. 10 days. I'm so excited. Some of these week 0 matchups, none of them are that interesting, but it's football, and I'm ready. You have UTEP in New Mexico. You have UConn versus Fresno State, Southern Utah versus San Jose State, Nebraska versus Illinois, and Hawaii versus UCLA. They said, Caleb, pick me a game. None of them stick out to me. But I love college football, and I'm going to watch all, what's there, like 6 of them. The Nebraska-Illinois is going to be interesting because, Scott Frost, like to talk about, I believe Scott Frost on the hot seat. Illinois, Brett Bielema's first year there. So that's going to be – and that game is in Illinois, and Nebraska's only a touchdown favorite. So that's going to be that should be a close game. And then I have a personal bias for Chip Kelly. I love Chip Kelly. I thought he was a great coach at Oregon. I don't know what he thought he was doing going to the NFL, but, I guess got to give it the old college try is what they say. Hawaii versus UCLA. I'm interested to see how Chip Kelly continues to build that program. So I'm going to be watching that game just strictly to see what Chip Kelly can do, and I believe he's in his 4th year as well. A couple of questions were brought up to me. Is it hard to believe that Navy is this bad? Navy goes to these stretches where they're good for 5 or 6 years, and they have just 2 off years. I'm trying not to use last year as an indicator because last year was such a weird year. So I'm just trying not to use that as much to see what's happening. And then Matt asked me a question. He said, "How do you feel about Pat Gerald as head coach? He's on the NFL radar. I mean, he went to Northwestern, so I think it would be hard for him for somebody. Oh, excuse me. I think it would be hard for somebody to pry him out of. I think it'd be hard to get him off of Northwestern. He played college ball there. He's been there, he's been there for Jesus Christ. I don't even think I realized he'd been there that long. He's been there he's going into his 15th year at the helm for Northwestern. He's got 106-81 record, which kind of surprised. He's also 63-60 in conference play. So, and he's had, let's see, 1, 2, 3. He's had 4 losing seasons in 14 years. So, finished the season ranked 4 or 5 times at Northwestern. If you're telling me that you thought he was that good of a coach, then you're lying to me. But it's fine. I still love you the same. So that is my thought. Is it's going to, and I agree with Kenny completely. He has a great program there, and I just read you his numbers. I didn't know he was that good. So, but just to echo my sentiments at the beginning, I want to thank everybody who is allowing me to work with them. We've got some big things coming. Follow my social, No Huddle Caleb. You can find us on Rocky Mountain Sports. So you can also find us on Venture Broadcasting. Go follow our YouTube page. It's No Huddle. Go follow. We have an upcoming. Matt asked me this, and then I'll get the last one, and I'll get out of here. Who's the next big name coach to leave the NCAA for the NFL? Well, Matt, if you want I think somebody's going to go buy Lincoln Riley out of Oklahoma just to see what he can do. That's going to be my pick. I know that's generic and nobody wants to hear that. But to me, I think somebody's going to go buy Lincoln Riley out of Oklahoma. But if Clay Helton gets fired, I could also see – Matt didn't like that answer. If somebody goes and buys Clay Helton out of USC, or if Clay Helton goes and gets fired, I can see Clay Helton going to transition to an NFL coach. I think that's going to be my pick. Is going to be Clay Helton because he can win, just not at the level USC wants him to. But to my last point before I get out of here, I'm sorry. I'm for some reason really tired all of a sudden. On my last point, like I said, I'm going to echo, and I'm going to be promoting this on our pages. Mark your calendar, September 2nd. I believe it's going to be at 7. And if Kenny will correct me, I see him on this live stream. He'll correct me. On September 2nd, I believe it's 7 p.m. over at K&K Sports. We're going to be doing a whole collab on a college ball roundtable preview. So go check us out over there. Go check out their socials. They do some great work over there. I had a great time talking to him this week. So go check that out. Next week, we're going to start back up with the MAC, finish out the conferences. Oh, I'm supposed to do that. I'll do the I'll start next week's show with ESPN Position U. Also, we have, it's right here, 8 to 10. I apologize. 8 to 10 Eastern, September 2nd. Mark your calendars. Also, shout out to Matt. We got a live event. Details are coming. October 30th. Be looking out on your calendar. We have events coming. Come check us out. We would love to meet you guys. We would love to have you guys come chat with us. Feel free to come by. We're not going to bite. I promise. Well, Matt might. Just don't talk through locks because he'll take your head off. All right, guys. With that, I'm going to wrap up our show. Y'all have a great rest of your day. I will see y'all in a week.